The term cake theory has a resonance in China that goes far beyond the kitchen. A decade ago, it became shorthand for an intense debate about the country's future. There were two opposite camps. One believed that China should focus on making China's cake, its economy bigger. The other said the focus should be to share the existing cake more fairly. It was a vendetta that saturated the febrile politics of China in the build-up to Xi Jinping's anointment as the Communist Party's chief in 2012. A powerful advocate for the sharing approach was later blamed for plotting a coup. Welcome back to the world of China. Give this video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's free. Let's move on. The political landscape in China now looks different. There was no sign of a struggle as there was during the cake debate between the party's titans. Less than a year after Mr. Xi took over, the alleged coup-plotter Xilai was sentenced to life in prison for corruption and abuse of power. Similar fates happened to several others close to him, including the man once in charge of China's domestic security apparatus. Mr. Xi looks firmly in charge. There are no provincial party chiefs waging thinly camouflaged battles for national power as Mr. Bo was then, in his case by tossing himself as a champion of the poor. Chinese President Xi Jinping's latest round of purges targets the police and judicial sectors, with dozens of officials already arrested, including at least one major police chief. Xi has made these kinds of all-out crackdowns a key feature of his rule, beginning with the elimination of his chief political rivals after he took power and continuing with key institutions, such as state-owned enterprises and the military. Xi's defenders say the purges are part of anti-corruption work, and some of the cases likely involve unusually corrupt officials. But anti-corruption crackdowns carried out under the auspices of the Chinese Communist Party auspices tend to follow a familiar pattern. The price of luxuries is a useful proxy for corruption since bribes often involve exchanges of luxury goods that fell during Xi's first rounds of purchase and then hit record highs before the coronavirus pandemic. 8 years in, rule by fear still seems to be Xi's watchword both inside and outside the party. Xi Jinping's crackdowns are never ending. They're eternal, all-pervasive, and directed against everyone. Nobody can escape Xi Jinping's hammer. Loyalists, competitors, opponents are all treated equally when it comes to being hunted by Jinping's personal internal security agencies. Xi Jinping has been using China's domestic security agencies for elevating his political interests for the past 1 year now, which is when he launched an upward purge of the CCP to scour it all of competition, which could make his claim to the throne in next year's National People's Congress difficult. The purchase of Xi's anti-corruption campaign have already weakened his rivals within the CCP and the People's Liberation Army or PLA. While control of the PLA is more art than science for CCP leaders, there is no sign that Xi cannot manage any strain between him and the PLA, even as he works to narrow his control over the party and the military. Xi has gained popularity by promoting many generals. Now the major question arises, does Xi Jinping's China face an imminent succession crisis? What is the reason for these massive crackdowns and purges? Xi Jinping is widely obeyed as the most powerful president China has had, if not the most influential leader since Mao Zedong. In March 2018, the National People's Congress, the country's parliament, voted to remove the two-term limit for the post-president. The move meant that Xi could remain in power for life instead of retiring in 2023. Some analysts debate that it does because Xi's elimination of the term limit on his leadership position and the concentration of power therein would shower such a crisis. Others are more skeptical, pointing out that the political significance of Xi's moves is overstated. The ultimate benchmark of any succession crisis is whether the military gets involved. Consequently, examining the possible role of the People's Liberation Army in China's leadership succession may help us to understand whether a crisis is looming. Since the Communist Party came to power in 1949, two critical instances stand out in China when the military became heavily involved in domestic politics, including in leadership successions. But now the fact is, even if bitterness toward Xi's leadership is growing, nobody in the party can act. Short of a full-blown coup or health crisis for Xi, the entire system is locked into unrealistic paranoia, yes-man thinking, and an increasing personality cult. Xi himself may be aware of these problems, but like dictators before him, he's learning that it's hard to order people who are terrified of you to speak their minds. However, even Xi seems to be facing challenges. Early on Friday, renowned strategic analyst Brahma Shilani tweeted that a power struggle was brewing in the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. Eventually, Xilai is not the first China observer to suspect turmoil in the CCP. Roger Garside, a former British diplomat, wrote a book that was published in May called China Coup: The Great Leap to Freedom. Some China watchers are also wondering about the ability of the country's leader, Xi Jinping, to remain in power. Xi has not left China for almost 2 years, and there has been a discussion of fratricidal rivalry within the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping hasn't left China for 1 year, 7 months and 22 days, the longest such term of any group of 20 leaders. The question is whether his absence from major events will hinder progress on everything from climate change to disputes with the US. China has been the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases for a decade, largely because of its dependence on coal. It currently represents 30% of global carbon emissions, making Xi's cooperation mandatory for the summit's success. Xi's decision whether to appear on the world stage in Scotland may hinge on whether China believes the leader would be protected from COVID-19 infection while aboard, though officials have not said so explicitly. He has instead been virtually attending talks and holding video calls with other heads of state. However, Xi is also dealing with energy and climate-related crises at home that could also make travel abroad a bad idea. In China, a rise in post-pandemic demand for manufactured products is putting pressure on factories and electricity utilities at the same time that the government is attempting to drastically cut carbon emissions. But the pivot hasn't been frictionless. The timing of the meetings in Rome and Glasgow also conflicted with preparations for a meeting at home that has clearly taken priority. From November 8th to 11th, the country's communist elite will gather in Beijing for a behind-closed-doors session that'll be a major step towards Xi's next phase in power. Still, Mr. Xi's recent absence from the global stage has complicated China's ambition to position itself as an alternative to American leadership, and it has overlapped with a sharp decay in the country's relations with much of the rest of the world. Mr. Xi's absence has also damped hopes that the gatherings in Rome and Glasgow can make significant progress on 2 of the most crucial issues facing the world today: the post-pandemic recovery and the fight against global warming. Biden, who's attending both, had desired to meet Xi on the sidelines, in keeping with his approach to work with China on issues like climate change, even as the 2 countries clash on others. Xi's absence in Rome and Glasgow could be a missed opportunity for countries to unite around a stronger, unified global effort on climate or economic recovery. Diplomats who spoke to the BBC remained hopeful that Xi will appear in Glasgow, explaining that his travel plans are often announced at the last minute. "We never give up hope," one diplomat told the news outlet, "and we're continuing to make the case for his attendance." Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. If you have enjoyed this video, then give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Watch more about China's economical crisis. The link is in the description below.